I'm quite interested to show where we've got to my faithful providers and encouragers and promoters and managers. What we've done this morning is we've started with what I call the articles triangle. The articles triangle has indefiniteness. Now, indefiniteness is an interesting thing. It lives beyond the sentence in little words, in adjuncts, in complements, in objects. I mean, okay, it might seem a stretch to say that the complement of a sentence is indefinite, but it is really because it's happening after a verb. Now, a verb, as I've said to my imaginary students in this imaginary presentation, a verb is an energy center, E equals mc squared. The example we used was the cat. Now, the belongs over here. All the th words, all positivity, this, there even, there is, you see, is here. This, that, the, they live here. Up here is Martin, up here is Italki, up here is Georgian policy on immigration, or whatever, which doesn't have the, and doesn't have I mean, it doesn't have, sorry, I got that wrong. It doesn't have and it doesn't have the. I should say it like this. It doesn't have the, and it doesn't have also links up with some and 20. They're all indefinites, which are qualified by something, but they start off as an indefinite. Most, more, many. They would all be roughly here. We would draw them here if we needed them. But if we have a simple sentence, the, now what is it? The is the important thing, where something positive is going to happen. The cat, okay, the first example, the cat is green, right? Is, not much energy, the cat is green. Now, if we can't be sure the cat seems unhappy, there's a little bit more energy, but not quite so much energy as in Martin, which is here. Martin is explaining this. Martin is explaining this. This, under normal circumstances, would be over here. This lesson is quite interesting. This is a stronger version of the, but at the moment, in another circumstance, which we have here, we have Martin is explaining this. And this now has been softened into something we refer back to in our mind very vaguely. If you say, this is interesting, you have a very strong image in your mind, a great electric charge, flare in your mind. This is interesting. Wow, you're thinking about it. It's impinging on you. Still might not be very lucid or clear. This is interesting. You're trying to grasp it. But if you've sort of grasped it, Martin is explaining this. It's softer. You're not thinking about it. You're referring to it. There's a huge difference between evoking in a language and referring, and especially referring back. Okay, the cat seems unhappy. Martin is explaining this. Now, what I did here was, okay, Martin was explaining this. It's the same thing. It is, but it's backwards, one step backwards in the past. So I thought, well, let's have a three-dimensional clock face, a three-dimensional clock. You can imagine a clock which points you at freely at all 360 degrees. But not only that, it also points in 3 dimensions. An exciting kind of clock to have. I'm sure such clocks are ticking all over the cosmos, doing many interesting things. We're little aware of this. However, on the past tense, we can say, yes, Martin was explaining this. Okay, now that's 4 sentences. The cat is green, the cat seems unhappy, Martin is explaining this, Martin was explaining this. All simple sentences. Then, I'm talking about adjuncts. Adjuncts, there are little adjuncts like but, slightly longer ones like however, and you could also have more intellectual ones. In this context, Martin was explaining this. Or in the context of a presentation. Now, that's an adjunct because it ends with a comma, and the comma means, sorry guys, the sentence is now going to begin. The real sentence. But an adjunct can come at the beginning or the end. It's adjunct, that means two joined. Ad is Latin for two. Junct means joined. And I must say I'm very grateful to a Spanish online course like I dabbled with a while back in China. I don't know Spanish, but I wanted to see how she went about presenting the course. This was the University, I believe, of, let me see, it was one of those beautiful places in Spain. It'll come back to me which one it was, where the Alhambra is. Anyway, it was there. And it was a fantastic explanation, and she used the idea of adjuncts. I'll have to look up the reference. That's where I got the idea of adjunct from. Adjunct is key, because adjunct can come before or after. You can say, Martin was interesting. However, you can say Martin's explanation was complex, semicolon, but his lesson was interesting. Okay, his lesson. Now, his will be right up here. I'll explain that in a minute. Anything which has been attached to by anything else, such as the or his, can live in this space here. His lesson was interesting. Interesting is the yin complement over here. If you want me to do that, I can do it now. I can say, but for this, we're going to need the seven-sided star. If you want his, you've got to, that's it, we do right. One more, I think. That's right. I, you, he, she, we, they. That's right. So now what you have again is you have another situation. Maybe change colour. These, okay, we have light blue. These are the possessives. My, your, his, her, its, ours, our, theirs. I mean, you have two versions of that again. You have my, mine. That's the adjectivization of the possessive. You see, that's like that. Now, his doesn't have that. It was his lesson. You can't say it was my, you have to say it was mine. You know, it's like this star has been deformed by sort of asteroids hitting it over the eons. So the language is not consistent. It's exactly what I was saying to the students. Okay. His lesson was, okay, that's here. It should be up this way because was is very little assentive energy. It's almost upright. Okay, we've got here, starting from there, yes. His lesson was, okay, unhappy. His lesson was interesting. Okay, I'm just going to write interesting, INT. And if I might just write that, go like that for interesting. Because really, ing is just, as I was also saying to my imaginary student, it's more as a gesture, isn't it? It's a sort of semi-indication where the word is, or a section of sense is finishing, as I just used the word finishing. It's more of an indicating piece of punctuation, high-level punctuation in the language than actually part of the verb. And I'm sure you'll find the same in German. And I think something like Chinese does similar things, I suspect. We won't get into that because of my ignorance of Chinese and your knowledge of it. However, Martin was explaining his idea. Then Martin was explaining. His idea would be over here on this occasion. Okay, the other thing I was doing was showing you can use this way up. You can use a mnemonic, a coloristic mnemonic. You can use he, subject here. This is a dividing line, this blue brick. Okay, there's an energy centers here. He was explaining, or I was saying to the students just now, he was explaining, and the ing is energy and it's beyond. If you put it this way, it's the wrong side, the far side of the frontier. You're very painfully aware of frontiers in Hong Kong, I know. And we are in Georgia too. I suppose all countries are, but sentences have frontiers too. Now he was explaining his lesson. He was explaining his lessons. But the ing, what I'm trying to say is that ing, you could say he was explaining. And the example I gave was to him, why didn't you call me back? Well, the lecturer was explaining. I was listening. I didn't have time to call you back. I didn't have time. It's only a third of those sentences where you're actually having a proper compliment. So there's so much mystery, strangeness, and interest in really simple sentences. I'm not saying everyone's going to have to go down this path and analyse sentences at this minute structural level. It's in reserve. It's something I can offer probably to people who maybe want to collate a language with another language and see if I use it as a tool. Does German behave quite like this? I mean, I once tried it with Turkish for a little while with a Turkish guy in China, and a very intelligent man. We found that Turkish had a lot of little things attached to suffixes and so on, attached to nouns thrown around. So your Yin Yang chart didn't have discrete words like cat, is, but in Turkish would be a word, yeah. But it could work, but it would be a much more subtle chart. I'm saying this Yin Yang chart works for all languages. It's a bold claim. But I think it's going to make language learning so much more interesting, because instead of having 87 languages with 87 grammatical systems, all different, 87 different dishes you have to learn to cook. And even the smartest people are only going to learn 14 of them. No, very often I refuse the question. I say, no, there's something wrong with the situation which has made this question seem relevant. Look at Brexit. The problem is a false problem, because the UK as part of Europe always has been in different diverging degrees ever since Julius Caesar, invaded, or he didn't actually invade, he kind of tried to have a business arrangement with the UK, where it was just England. It was East Anglia, essentially. This is 54 BC. And even earlier, England was joined, wasn't it, to Europe by a land mass, which Sam called it. There was a global warming or something happened, and so we became an island. But look at our language. It's the same as German, Frisian, Dutch, Danish. And it's got lots of French and Latin in it. It's the 6 or 7 languages. There's another thing I like to tell the students. But word roots, which very often are so easy to understand. And if you're Chinese students, you can go to translator, you'll find, a beautiful symbol, like the Chinese symbol for silk, I remember, it was so beautiful. And English words have similar rich kernels of meaning. A word like master, for example, from Latin magister. Or even more mysterious words if you look up something like the West or East. And compare that sort of thing in different languages. It's fascinating. And this may not be urgent study to pass the IELTS or something, but it's jolly interesting. And I'm happy to throw it in. People want. And this is what my vision of online learning is, not some kind of anxious replica of classroom learning, or worse still, training, which is education has turned into a sort of mass production lines of training in many cases, or people have that mentality of standardizing education. I mean, I'm getting thousands of emails from Berkeley Online. It's an American musicological initiative. They want people to be able to learn music globally, which is great, but music is an irrational thing, and it's not going to be reduced to a big template which you apply worldwide. And I'm not going to venture into that area, but it's pretty obvious you can't do that with politics either. There's such variety in languages, there's such variety in human beings, there's such richness and variety in all our history, all the things that shape you, shape me, shape my future students, and all of these are valid. All of these need to sing, to use the wonderful term of American musicologist H. Robbins Landon, H.R. I think his name was, Robbins Landon, 2 B's, Robbins Landon. Horns in high C. Horn is an instrument. You hear that in bargaining or Italian opera, Rossini. The thing I'm thinking of is actually Richard Strauss's the name of the piece, Don Quixote, I think maybe. The horn is a very evocative instrument, a hunting instrument, yes. Used in all cultures, but of course they don't have all these things, valves and things to shorten the length of the tube vibrating and so to alter the pitch. Anyway, Robinson Andon's title was Horns in High C. High C means a very small trumpet with a very high basic note, which is very thrilling and very, very difficult to play, all done with the lips, because there's no little keys to make the thing change its pitch.